and welcome to Murder Dictionary Podcast. My name is Brianna, and that is Kelly.
Hey.
Before we get started, as always, we want to just remind you of a few things that are going to be in our description and show notes every week. We always put in links to our Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter if you want to follow us over there. I highly recommend you do so. If I do say so myself, it's pretty fun over there.
Is it?
Yeah, you're never on. But
no,
I have a lot of fun with it.
Oh, I'm so glad.
Dude, it's pretty fun. Lots of memes,
Love memes.
Of interesting facts, serial killer tidbits.
I love facts more than I love memes. So.
Recommendations for TV, books, movies, you know.
Someone recommended something on Facebook recently. And then I forgot it and I didn't. But it was something on Netflix, right? It was like something about cops. The five something. The boys. The five. No?
the five boys. The five boys of cops.
That's it.
Sure. Yeah, totally.
I'm going to go on Facebook and then send you a screenshot and be like, bam.
I remembered.
It had the in it, so I was kind of close.
So another thing that's going to be in our description and show notes every week is going to be a link to our resources and research materials. If you want to follow up and read a little bit more, find out some more things, you can check those out. We always have links to some resources for domestic violence and CPS, mental health resources, suicide hotlines, and a bunch of stuff like that in our show notes as well. And lastly, we also have links to our thread lists where you can get merch like shirts and phone cases, notebooks, coffee mugs, stuff like that. And also link to our Patreon. So Patreon, you can do monthly support and get some merch and bonus episodes and stuff like that. So we have a few new Patreon supporters this week.
What?
And we want to say thank you to Leah, Delaney, Jackie, Brent, Allie, and James.
Whoa, that's getting hard. Leah, Delaney,
Jackie,
Brent.
That's my name. Sorry. Brent,
Deli,
Allie. So close.
Just because it was Brent and Deli.
Yes. And
Allie.
James. So thanks again to you guys.
Thanks, guys.
And another Leah this week.
Oh.
So many Leahs love true crime.
Yeah.
It's just a thing.
I don't even meet Leahs in real life, so this is
right.
This is good. This is more I've ever met in my life.
And they all love true crime. They're all people like us.
The best.
So, also, one more thing before we get into the story. Tonight's story is actually a request from a Patreon supporter. So one of the options on Patreon is to choose one of the cases. So we're taking a break from the alphabet. We're not starting technically letter W yet. We're doing a case from a request from Andy, who is a listener who supports on Patreon. So thank you to Andy for choosing tonight's case.
Thanks, Andy. So we've had two so far. It's been Robert and Andy.
Yeah.
Right? Awesome. Thanks, guys.
So thank you so much to Andy for choosing this week's case, Christopher Wilder, a.k.a. the Beauty Queen Killer.
Yes.
Yeah. So
I'm for it. No, I'm just kidding. Jokes.
So Christopher Wilder was born in 1945 in Sydney, Australia.
Oh.
Here we go.
Woo.
Australia
It's already
crimes.
good. Love it.
His father was an American naval officer, and he met Christopher's mother, who was an Australian woman, when he was stationed in Australia. So they met, they had Christopher, and then they went on to have a couple other kids together.
How? Can you explain that?
You want me to tell you about the birds and the bees?
Yeah, I just
and the
wanted
dicks?
to see your research on that. Do you have any pictures?
Been researching for a lifetime, Kelly. I can't just tell you right now.
You like my finger inside my hole?
Your sign language is on point, dude.
Took 4
Do you
years.
always do that O thing with your mouth when you do sign language?
Did I? I had no clue.
You didn't know what your mouth was doing? It was real cute.
Aw. I'll try.
So Christopher's mother had extreme complications during childbirth, and Christopher actually almost died before he was fully born. A priest was actually present and called to perform last rites at his birth. So they really didn't think that he was going to make it. I know.
That's sad.
Yeah, it's awful. But miraculously, he actually pulled through. But even though he recovered from whatever was going on during his birth, he was a very sickly child. There were a lot of different instances of things that would happen to him. He had seizures, and they came on kind of out of nowhere. It was pretty shocking. They didn't know how to get rid of them. And also at the age of 2, he almost drowned while he was playing in a swimming pool.
What kind of fucking cursed child is this?
Right? Seriously.
That sucks.
I don't know what the fuck was going on with this family, but something doesn't seem right.
Oh, they're Australian.
They're just like sending him out to wrestle some snakes or something.
I mean, everything's gonna kill you. Like the water will kill you.
Everything's deadly in Australia.
It is, man.
Yeah, water, air.
Yeah.
Yeah.
People.
Other than being sick, he had a pretty stable childhood. His family was pretty normal. There was nothing really that stood out about his early adolescence. However, once he was kind of in his tween years, he became a peeping Tom, which we see all the time in serial killers.
Yeah.
It's like the gateway drug to murder.
I mean, everyone's kind of a peeping Tom. Like, you have to look, right? So
that's how you learn.
It's exactly how you learn. Watch and learn. There's a whole, I mean, but when does it cross that line?
Yeah, I mean, I think as a kid, I would know not to just go watch someone do something private. You know what I mean?
No,
like,
I don't know that. I seriously don't. I used to watch people all the time. So I like, when did I turn into a Tom? I'm always peeping, but where's the borderline of being Tom? Seriously.
I don't know.
I don't like, do you get caught doing it? Does that like...
Well, I think it's one thing to people watch. Like, I was always kind of a quiet child, so I would just sit to myself and look around. But it's another thing to seek out looking into someone's private life. Like, did you go look into people's windows?
Oh, kind of. Like my mom's, though. You
Dude,
know what I mean?
Every week I feel like you might murder me. There's more evidence.
I will for sure
You're
watch
a
you
serial
get
killer.
undressed. Like 100%. Or whatever activities you do in your bed. I just like that. We were outside a lot. You know, my mom was like, hey, get out of the house. And then all the windows in this place were always like open, or it's just fun. What else are you going to do? This show was boring.
Yeah, you can't be inside watching TV, so you can be outside watching people get dressed.
Yeah, no, my mom was like, hey, you don't come into the house for a while. So then I was like, okay, I'll just go watch.
Mommy needs some private time,
exactly.
basically. Oh,
instead of using her room, she needs like the whole house.
Oh my God.
No, I don't know. I guess I didn't watch that much, but I had a lot of older siblings, right? So watching them, okay, I guess there's that weirdness of like, if you're watching you get undressed or like, you know, poop or something.
Did you watch people use the bathroom all the time?
Sometimes. Not like watch it, but like, you know.
Just put your head in your hands. And
just stare. There's a lot of us in the household, man.
Yeah, well, that's true.
Yeah.
By age 17, his nonviolent voyeurism escalated to actually sexually assaulting someone for the first time. So there's one of the major distinctions. When you're seeking it out for sexual gratification, trying to be a creep, I don't know. I think there was a difference where he was actually just looking for women to violate.
Yeah.
Like looking at them was a violation. That was the first.
Yeah.
That was the start of it, you know?
Absolutely.
I don't necessarily think that you were looking at people to violate them.
No, I feel like I would have just gotten shoot off. I mean, maybe I probably was, but I'd get shoot off. This kid, they'd be like, hey, we need to talk to your parents. You're obviously into this too much.
Yeah.
That's weird. How did he sexually...
Christopher and a group of his friends kidnapped a girl and they took her to a beach and they all raped her.
Whoa.
Yes. Yeah. Which is completely fucking terrifying. It was a whole group of them. The whole group thing really freaks me out because that means that all of you went along with it and not one of you was like, hey, let's not do this.
Yeah.
This girl clearly doesn't want this. Yeah. Maybe we should stop.
Just like last week's with the kids going to the forest. Like, you got everyone to co-sign to this. Like,
everybody signed on and was like, yep, we're in.
Great idea.
Fuck. That's
terrible.
Scary.
Because, like, okay, going to the woods to take drugs is different than like, hey, we're going to rape this girl on the beach. That's yes.
Yeah, I don't know. Especially last week, it was like the intention wasn't for something bad to happen. Yeah. It just happened.
Yeah.
However, this was like, yeah, we're stealing this girl to hurt her. Yeah. That's the only reason we're taking her to the beach, you know?
Yeah, the death was a side effect of them doing drugs, whereas this is the plan.
That's just, it, yeah. It's so sad.
Why the beach?
I don't know, man.
That's not a good.
So all the boys pled guilty, and Christopher was only sentenced to 1 year probation. Fuck. Australia is disappointing me, like, already. I don't know. Violence against women isn't taken that seriously, especially in this era, you know?
Probation, like, so if you just do anything else again, it's a slap on the wrist, and if you do something else, then we'll take you seriously.
Yeah.
Fuck.
It's just not that big of a deal. So Australia's letting me down.
Can we wear like put like, you know, like an ankle bracelet, but like a cock ring bracelet? You know?
Oh, yeah. I'm all for it.
And
can it have teeth inside?
Yeah. Chastity, teeth, cock ring.
Just like, don't fuck up.
Like anytime your balls think about raping, well, balls don't rape, but it just tightens. Like it just cuts off all the blood. And then, yeah.
I'm for it.
Okay,
Whatever will stop this kind of shit from happening. I'm all about it.
Yeah, let's do a whitehouse.gov to.
So part of his sentence was that he was required to receive mental health care treatment, which is good.
That's okay. Yeah.
Right? But we're talking about the early 60s here. So his treatment was pretty outdated as of the kind of technology and information we have today, and even a bit barbaric. So, of course, Christopher underwent electroconvulsive therapy.
Of course he did.
Yes.
Terrible.
So at the time, doctors believed that shock therapy could correct unwanted mental conditions. And if any listeners aren't familiar, electroconvulsive therapy is a treatment where the medical staff would administer small electric shocks. It's about 75 to 470 volts is the information I found. So the shocks pass through the brain, trigger seizures, and then it is believed that this could heal mental or emotional issues for patients. But, I mean, nowadays we know that that's complete bullshit. You know, and in the meantime, the trauma to the body that's caused by this actual treatment is so severe.
Yeah.
And a lot of times they'd have to give them muscle relaxers and shit so that they would not hurt themselves or break anything.
Yeah, you're just tensing him. And wasn't he already epileptic?
Yeah, that's the thing. I don't understand how they didn't see that as a problem, that he was already prone to seizures and then you're inducing them. So... yeah.
So the treatment worked.
Exactly. Okay, bye. See you next week. So the thing is that electroshock actually seemed to fuel Christopher's violent sexual fantasies instead of curb them, which is no surprise.
Yeah.
I mean, that's pretty aggressive treatment. I don't know what they thought would happen. That's pretty nuts. I wonder how many studies they did. Like, there had to be some sort of proof that it worked for them to be doing that for so long, right?
Yeah, it had to have worked at least once, right?
Yeah. Maybe it was just a fluke one time.
Show me that one time.
And then they did it for 20 years.
Yeah. This kid couldn't walk, and then we shocked him.
And then he's just moving.
Yeah, he's
just vibrating across the floor. It works. Proof.
Let's use it for mental health.
Yeah, right? It's totally transferable. So instead, of course, his fantasies about dominating and controlling and inflicting pain upon women were magnified after having electroshock. So he even began having fantasies about electrocuting women while he was having sex with them.
He would have never had that fucking thought if he didn't.
Just like, oh, wait, a little light bulb went off in his head as soon as they strapped him in.
Remember when someone controlled me and shocked the shit out of me? I want to do that to someone else.
Right?
They're just giving him ideas. Aren't they held responsible? No?
Nobody holds doctors responsible.
Oh, okay.
It's just not a thing. But my question is, if you're fucking someone while they're getting electrocuted in a certain way, aren't you getting electrocuted?
Unless
or am
you're
I not understanding how electricity works?
I think you have to wear rubber shoes.
You got to be able to ground yourself.
Yeah,
that's what it is.
If you don't wear, like if you're just wearing socks, then you get electrocuted.
Got it. Because the shoes are the key.
Shoes are
always.
Because there's toys like that, right?
Yeah.
So
I mean, you have the electro toys, but they're probably a lower voltage.
I don't know. That shocked it shocked my hand real bad.
Oh no!
I was so scared of that thing.
It's because you're using it wrong. It's supposed to be for your junk, dude.
I was just I just shaking hands with it, like just a firm grip.
Fucked up thing about electrocuting is if it's on your hand, you just grip harder. Has that ever happened to you?
Yeah, you don't like go instantly. You're just like, you have enough time to look at your hand like, what's going on?
That happened to me at the pole in the window one time. Did I tell you that? There was fucking Christmas lights, and one of them had like, I don't know, there was a wire that was showing it touched the pole. I grabbed the fucking stripper pole and electrocuted myself, and I couldn't let go. True story.
Oh, God. Oh.
And then I had to go sit down. I was like, whoa.
The best part is that
I gotta take a break.
You were probably in the window. So you were in the window, meaning everyone on the street could see this, right? I hope people were just at a park, like on a red
just
light.
Like, what the fuck? That is not how you twerk. You're supposed to do just your butt. What's wrong with you? Not your whole body. Damn. Amateurs. So yeah, I would think, I don't know, if he's having that fantasy of electrocuting someone while he's fucking them, that just doesn't work.
Yeah, or unless he likes being electrocuted.
Oh, yeah, I didn't even think about that because my thought was nobody likes that shit. It's awful.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But then we just talked about an electric vibrator.
Yeah.
So obviously people like it.
That's true.
We have the gold lube to go with it, remember?
Yeah, the conductivity lube or whatever.
Or whatever.
Whatever.
The glitter lube.
Just fucking electricity. So after this, he also, of course, starts fantasizing about using electricity just to harm women. So it becomes this whole bigger general thing. Mm-hmm. It's sexual. It's also non-sexual. It's also just inflicting violence, you know? So in 1968, at the age of 23, Christopher got married to some lucky lady. But, yes? Do you want to share?
Does she know?
Well,
is she in on it or is she out?
She, I don't think, knew about some of his sexual oddities.
Does that mean he really loved her? Because he didn't inflict it on her?
Possibly. But the thing is I think that they probably didn't have much sexual sort of interaction before they got married. And then once she was exposed to it, she was like, no, I'm out.
Fuck this.
Because their marriage only lasted 8 days before they separated. Yes. Yeah.
Oh, man.
So she accused him of sexual abuse. And she also found women's underwear and naked photos of women in his briefcase. So after 8 days of marriage, she peaced out.
Man, remember when you just, I don't know, but you had to keep it in a briefcase and not like a cell phone?
Right.
I was like, she's going to say cell phone.
I know.
My briefcase, like one mess, like one little trip, and then you drop everything and just all your undies and everything comes out.
Right.
It's like that now you just
But that's kind of a anxiety or fear of mine with my phone. Like I'm afraid I'm going to open a web page and then just porn's going to start playing.
Don't you have like one of those face ID things? Don't you have an iPhone or something where it's impossible to break into? No,
I'm just saying in general that I'm going to open it up and the last thing on my search history will be porn and it'll just start like auto playing.
Yeah.
That's what I'm afraid of happening. The same way sometimes that happens with my music. Like all of a sudden I'm just like playing, like press play on accident. That's not embarrassing, but if it was porn it would be.
It would be. And even like when it's not porn, but it's like your last search, when it searches, it's like
it's something so ridiculous.
How many puppies does Mariah Carey own? Right? Or something stupid. Like it's like I didn't care.
Or it's some sort of murder research where you're just talking to a random person, you show them something on your phone, and then like just crime scene photos pop up.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Like I swear I'm not crazy.
How long does it take for rigor mortis to set in?
Right. I mean, things I've really Googled, you know?
Do you really poop when you die?
I don't want people to see that.
Yeah.
Or porn. I just don't. Or I don't want that.
If looking at us, a lot of people would have already guessed that. So
that we like porn or
both.
rigor?
Both. Rigor.
So they separated only 8 days after getting married. So soon after the separation, he tried coercing a nurse into having sex with him by taking compromising photos of her and then trying to blackmail her for sex.
Was she like wearing pants or something?
Right?
Getting a job.
Just slightly tight pants.
Carrying his briefcase. It's the 60s. I don't know.
I don't know. It's just different standards of beauty. So he was trying to extort her for sex by saying that if she didn't fuck him, then he would show everyone the pictures that she had taken. So I don't know too much detail about what was going on in the pictures, but I'm assuming, she was changing. It was some sort of peeping Tom kind of thing is what I'm assuming.
Oh, and she's a nurse. She actually is holding a job. Actually, the 60s were really progressive and women, wearing pants was the thing. You know what I mean? So
she's trying to, do her thing in this world and have a career. And then the possibility that the fact that she's a woman and someone could take advantage of her might completely derail that.
Yeah.
Was probably really terrifying for her.
Because now if that happened, I'd be like, oh, you're the fucking weirdo looking at me getting dressed.
Yes.
You're the one to blame. I'm not the weirdo. Like,
yes.
But back then it's like, how could you even,
it's always the woman's fault. Yep.
How dare you take your pants off?
But she tried to fight it.
Okay.
So she went to the police instead of giving in to his extortion scam.
And they asked her for copies of the photos?
Right. I mean, seriously. But eventually the nurse drops the charges because she didn't want to have to testify against him. She kind of just wanted the whole ordeal to go away. And so she gave up on it, which is a bummer. But that happens a lot in Law & Order SVU. Yeah. But you don't watch that. Have you been watching that?
Slightly.
All right, we'll move on so I don't get upset.
I know what I'm doing tonight.
So since Christopher was already on the Australian cops' radar as like a serial sex offender, he decided to move to the US so he could have a clean slate.
Yeah, come here. We love everyone.
Right. Give us your poor, you're hungry, you're tired, you're sex offenders.
Yeah. Have you tried running for politics?
Right. So in 1970, he moved to Florida.
Oh my God.
And yeah. So he starts his own business called the Sawtell Construction Company. And over the next few years, he became quite successful in the construction industry. He bought a home. He began racing cars for fun. That was his hobby. Pretty expensive hobby.
Yeah.
And Chris and his business partner took their profit from the construction and invested it in real estate. And eventually he owned about $400,000 worth of real estate, which this is in the 70s, so it would be a couple million today.
So he did well.
Yes. His real estate ventures made him a lot of money, and he embraced this new kind of rich bachelor image. He did well in his hobby of racing cars, and he placed 17th in the Miami Grand Prix, which is pretty good for just a hobbyist.
We hate on Florida a lot. I really like Florida. I'm just hating. Sometimes it's just got crazy stories, but that sounds really cool. I would love to go to.
Backpedaling so hard right now.
I do backpedal because I hate some of the things that come out of Florida, but on the whole.
Yeah. No, I get it. There's a lot of cool shit in Florida.
Right?
There's a lot of not cool shit in Florida. There's a lot of crazy shit in Florida.
True. Did you know sharks can swim up streams there?
I did not, but that's because you're the shark expert and I'm here to learn.
Someone's going to tell me I'm wrong, so.
Is that like the toilet flushing the other way or like what? I don't understand.
Exactly.
So he began some new hobbies like skiing, boating, and photography. I'm sure he played tennis too. I didn't find any info about it, but I'm just assuming because he's that kind of asshole.
Yeah, these all sound like fun things. What are you talking about?
Yeah, but he's an asshole.
Oh, he is.
That's all.
Anybody
I have no problem with those activities. I have a problem with him.
Yeah.
So he had a private dock, a speedboat, nice car, nice clothes, and he looked like a handsome, successful guy, and women would gravitate to him.
Ugh.
So because Christopher looked like a handsome single guy that you could trust, he was able to con and scam and trick women a lot. His girlfriend at the time had a couple weird interactions, although she said he wasn't really abusive, but she was kind of uncomfortable with some of the things that he did. She says that once Christopher had freaked out on her kind of out of nowhere, everything was going fine, and then he commanded that she leave his home immediately.
Did she fart?
Stop victim blaming. And the thing is he said that he was afraid he might hurt her.
Oh, so it's a sweet thing. It was
so romantic.
It's like before they change into like a werewolf or whatever.
Oh,
it's
yeah.
way.
It's like the pre-thriller.
Yeah.
I'm not like other boys. Uh-huh.
That's really good.
Thanks, man. I've been practicing.
I felt like Michael was in the room. Did you see my face light up? And then I was like, oh.
Just wait till I come for your butthole. I mean, what? No, he didn't do it.
My face is going to light up.
So another time she says that she had woken up to find him at the foot of her bed with him claiming that he didn't know how he'd gotten there or why he was there. Like he just blacked out. Like not super concerning, but concerning enough given the other incidents. You know?
If he's not a blackout drunk, that would worry me.
Yeah,
Or
that's the thing, is there was no
Alzheimer's.
explanation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Huh.
So during this time, he was also still taking pictures of women without their consent.
See, now that's what I'm not cool with.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. A store clerk had found photographs that Christopher had left for developing, which included women he did not know and also prepubescent children.
Whoa.
Yeah. So he had told his girlfriend that his photography hobby was a sickness, but he was compelled to do it and he couldn't stop. In March 1971, he was arrested for soliciting women to pose for pictures. He pled guilty and paid a small fine, but again, that was it. Just nothing, just a fine. Christopher then changed his approach and basically decided to use flattery to lure in young women.
Didn't Ed Kemper do the same thing?
I mean, a lot of people do.
Yeah, that's true.
Because it works.
Yeah, it does work.
That's yeah.
Girls do the same. I do the same thing. And so, oh my God, I love
it's
your
like
nails.
it's a tactic.
I love your shirt.
When I'm feeling really anxious, I just compliment people.
Of course, because then it makes you feel good and then it starts
Exactly. I'm like, I love your purse.
Yeah.
Oh my God, that's so cute.
Can I take pictures of it?
Right? Where'd you get that?
Can you bend over?
That's just a sign that I'm feeling really uncomfortable, but it diffuses things.
It's a sickness, not a hobby.
So he began using the tactic of saying that he's a photographer looking for models. So this kind of pumped people's ego and made them feel good, make them felt like they were beautiful, and kind of made them more comfortable with him, you know? So the women would often go along with whatever Christopher said because they were excited at the possibility of being a model and flattered by the fact that this photographer was taking an interest in them.
I think we just got to ask for the money up front.
Oh, yeah.
I think that's what I'm learning. I'm like, well, if you just ask for the $200 before we start,
then you just run off.
Yeah. Definitely don't complete the job.
So the photographer angle also allowed him to have a great excuse for giving extra attention to teenage girls. Otherwise, it's kind of suspicious, you know? So he could kind of hide behind this photography bullshit.
Like, what freelance do you do where you need to be like, you're not working for JCPenney doing the girls section.
Yeah, it makes no sense. I don't necessarily know a lot about the modeling industry, but something in me says that that's just not the way it works. You don't go scouting in malls.
Oh, yes, you do.
No, people have fucking agents.
Now.
You know?
But how do you think they found, like...
Well, now they have
Tiffany
Instagram. That's different.
Yeah, that's true. But people used to really look around, and all the models are like 16 years old.
Yeah.
Fuck, that's so weird.
Oof. Yeah. So he began in 1974 calling himself David Pierce, the photographer, and started using shopping malls as his main target to find young girls.
Hanging outside of Claire's.
Yep. You want 20 pairs of earrings and a modeling career? I got you. So the mall is a place where there's a high volume of women, of course, and he can sit and people watch without drawing attention to himself, and he could just blend into the crowd.
You could hang out in the food court all day.
All day.
I want to
Cinnabons for days. It's also really easy in a mall to just follow people since there's a crowd and not have them really notice because there's enough people to kind of blend in. And he could just kind of keep his distance and find the right person, you know, totally creep out on them. So in 1974, he picked up a girl in a shopping center by telling her that he needed a model for an upcoming shoot. Once they were alone, he drugged her and he raped her. Again, he took a plea for this charge and was only put on probation with required therapy. That's it.
Oh, man.
I don't know how many times you have to have sexual offenses before getting some real fucking time.
Hey, don't you get put away for the drugs? At least the drugs. That's something we take seriously. We don't really care about rape, but drugs.
Well, I mean, I think it's different having drugs on you than drugging a person. I mean...
That's what I'm saying. Drugging a person should be worse,
yeah,
right?
Yeah. I don't know. There's just...
Where's that charge?
So many things. This has to be like, what, 4 or 5 times now? 6?
Yeah.
So what the fuck is anybody doing to get him off the streets? It drives me crazy.
A probation. That's
yeah. He'll behave for sure.
But if he does it again, we'll really consider
slap him on the wrist, like twice.
He'll be grounded.
No TV for a week, Christopher. So in 1977, of course, he didn't change anything, and Christopher was arrested again for trying to force a high school student into having oral sex with him in a home that was under renovation.
These are underage girls, too. There's, like, drugs, underageness. Like,
yes.
I get the rape thing that they don't really care and whatever.
So much going on.
But there's other stuff that's going on.
It's not really just, it's just not valuing women and sexual assaults.
On the whole.
It just doesn't matter.
I just... Because we know we don't care about women, but or at least especially during that time we didn't care about women, but children, you know, you
would think something would get him off the streets. Ugh. But no, you would be wrong if you thought that.
Oh, man.
So he just keeps going. So this time, the coercion that he used, like previously when he was trying to blackmail the girl, this time it was just threats of violence. He used the photography scam, and then once they were alone, he told her that if she didn't do it, then he would beat her. When he was apprehended, he said that he didn't think he had done anything wrong. The judge asked if he was sane enough to stand trial, and he told the judge that he is masturbating to the mental image of raping an underage girl.
So, yes.
So, so I think I have my shit together.
Yeah, and I didn't know you could just ask people if they're sane.
Yeah, just flat out.
Yeah.
I didn't really think of that as an option either.
Yeah, I'm good.
Don't you have to undergo some testing?
Yeah. Man, the 70s were fucked up.
So Christopher was ordered to undergo therapy again, and his therapist says that he actually admitted to committing the crime. During the resulting trial, a doctor and a psychiatrist evaluated him and recommended supervised treatment. Other than that, he was acquitted. He just had to go to therapy.
And someone just got to watch him while he gets treatment?
Pretty much.
Oh, man.
Yeah, just like, hey, keep an eye on him. Yeah, that's going to help.
How about he's banned from using cameras?
Right.
Something that really hits him. That's fucked, dude.
Yeah. In 1980, he approached 2 girls who were out shopping and asked them to be models for him. One goes with him, and the other is pretty sketched out and declines the offer. He ends up driving the one girl to a remote location and raping her in his vehicle. She turns him in, but he claims that he has blackouts during the weekends, and he plea bargains down to probation with therapy. No jail time. Again.
I blacked out.
I'm trying to black out in this story, like, holy fuck. I can't believe this is happening over and over and over again. Yes. In 1981, he sought the help of a dating service to meet women. And I don't fucking understand how they wouldn't do a background check on him. and they would just put him in as an eligible bachelor.
1981.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. All makes sense now. So the service used VHS copies of taped interviews to match up singles. Fuck yeah. The 80s.
Hey, my name's Kelly. I'm just sitting here trying to be on the real world. Road rules. I think I'd be really good for this job because I like men and booze. And I wear skimpy things.
Pretty much. That's exactly what he said.
Yeah.
So in Christopher's tape, he talked a lot about himself. He was clearly a narcissist and said he wanted a long-term relationship, but not marriage. He also said he was seeking depth and sincerity, and he preferred to date women who were in their early 20s, even though at the time he was in his mid to late 30s. In 1982, he goes back to Australia to visit his parents. And then I get a little hopeful that maybe something will happen.
Yeah, like maybe seeing his mom might jar something in him. And it's like, oh, yeah, I shouldn't be doing this.
Nah, I just have more faith in Australia. History has shown they're pretty good at getting them killers, but it's not the case. So when he returned to Australia, he abducted two 15-year-old girls from a beach. He took them to a remote location, tied them up, forced them to pose for nude pictures, and then he bound them into subservient positions and then masturbated over them. Again, like you said before, you could find someone that you could pay or someone that's just into this, not pointing any fingers at either one of us.
Not currently looking at Backpage, fucking right now.
And then that would be fine. Just find someone that's into the things you're into.
Do you have $200?
I mean, really.
Seriously.
You can find someone. You just don't have to go about it like this.
But I guess it's not as good when you're paying for it, right? Or not as
for
good.
Him, I guess. For him,
it's probably not as satisfying.
Yeah, that's how he relaxes.
But you know what? He did say he wants sincerity.
So they are sincerely fucking terrified.
Exactly.
God damn.
You can't pay someone to be terrified. It's not.
But this is like his thing. This is his like, oh, some people go to the spa. He goes to the beach and takes girls, you know?
Yeah, like long walks on the beach.
He just needs to, I don't know.
Die?
Smoke a bowl, man.
No, he doesn't deserve weed. What the fuck? Oh, man, he needs to jump off a cliff.
That's true. That's true. I'm in. So, of course, the girls run off and go to the police, which is awesome. A lot of these girls, they go to the police right away, which is one of the good things in the story.
Yeah.
Instead of just, listening to him. And even though it doesn't lead to anything as far as jail time for him, it's still, I think, really positive that they're going to report it, because I know a lot of people don't do that.
Absolutely, they're just too scared. But little did they know that he was blacked out.
Right.
So
it's the weekends. So once they go to the police are able to trace the license plate of the rental car back to Christopher, and he's charged with kidnapping and assault.
Australia for the win, man. Woo!
But Christopher's parents posted his bail, which was $350,000, and he got out of jail. So the trial was first postponed to May 1983, and then it was postponed again to April 3rd, 1984. He was allowed to leave the country as part of his release, so he came back to the U.S. So while he is out on bail awaiting the trial in Australia, Christopher commits his first murder. February 26, 1984, Christopher abducts 20-year-old Rosario Gonzalez. Rosario was a model and a beauty queen who had participated in the Miss Florida pageant. She was working at the Miami Grand Prix at the racetrack, and she was handing out samples at one of those booths when Christopher spotted her. He approached her using the David the photographer, and she was seen leaving the racetrack around noon with a man that matched Christopher's description. She never picked up her paycheck at the end of the gig, because they're supposed to be paid daily. And after it was over, she never showed up, which was the first indication that something had happened to her. On March 4th, 1984, 23-year-old Elizabeth Kenyon met up with her parents, which she did every Sunday. And Elizabeth was also a beauty queen who had won the Orange Bowl Princess Crown 2 years earlier and was a finalist for the same Miss Florida pageant that Rosario was in.
Do you think this is a coincidence, or is he actually doing it?
I think it's a coincidence.
That's weird.
Yeah. Yeah, it's weird. Elizabeth also worked with special needs kids. When she visited her parents, they noticed that she had bruises on her arms and legs. But Elizabeth was a teacher, and she explained that it was from a schoolyard fight that she had broken up during the previous week. Her parents heard her out, but in the back of their mind, they suspected that her ex-boyfriend, Christopher Wilder, had actually been the one to give her the bruises. That night when they were all together, they also saw a news report about Rosario Gonzalez being missing. And they all kind of looked at each other and said, that looks like Elizabeth. They looked very similar. So Elizabeth left the home around 9 o'clock, and her roommate says that she did actually arrive home that night at 10 o'clock. When she went to work the next morning, before she left for the day, she talked to a coworker, which was the school's security officer. And he recalls they had a conversation about their weekend or whatever, and he was the last person to see Elizabeth alive. She never showed up for work on Tuesday. And when the security officer noticed that she wasn't there, it was kind of out of character. She never called out sick, so he wanted to follow up. So they contacted the roommate, and the roommate said that she never arrived home on Monday night from work. So again, because this was out of character, everybody went into looking for her. So her family and friends began calling everyone she knows, calling all the area hospitals, and going into full-on search mode. They filed a missing persons report, but her dad, Bill, didn't want to wait for the cops, so in the meantime, he hired a PI immediately.
Man, I like this story so much.
He just knows. I mean, he's like, I don't have any faith they're doing anything.
Yeah.
Let me get someone on the job that's really going to take it seriously and work for me, and they're only working for me, and they're only working on this case.
And just by asking a couple people, they cut down the time of when she went missing.
Right,
from her
exactly.
roommate to not showing up with school. I don't know.
Right.
They did their own work already ahead and then got someone who can further that stuff that they couldn't do.
And they can even show up to the cops with a lot of information.
Yeah.
Like, they're not just rolling in blind. They're not starting from square one.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I mean, it's a really good idea.
Yeah.
So the PI learned that Elizabeth had been dating a few men recently, including Christopher Wilder. Chris had dated her a couple years prior, and he even proposed, but the age difference of 17 years was a little bit too much. So they broke up, but they remained friends, and they would still hang out from time to time, and they had started kind of seeing each other in the time leading up to her disappearance. But when they go to follow up with Christopher and ask him, he said that he hadn't seen her in over a month. But they all knew that wasn't true. Especially after they're following up on some of these leads, and they go to a gas station, and the gas station attendants remember seeing them together the day she disappeared. So the gas station attendants say that they were together at the store Monday afternoon. Elizabeth was about to pay for her gas when a man pulled up in a gray Cadillac, and he pulled in behind her and offered to pay for her. She mentioned to the gas station attendants that they were both on their way to the airport. And when the gas station attendants were shown photographs of a bunch of men, they identified Christopher as the man who was with her that day.
And she didn't show up home Monday night, so obviously...
Right. He was the last person. He's the one that did it. So the PI goes to the airport and he finds her car. It's completely abandoned. There's no bags and no indication that she got on a plane. There's no record of her going anywhere or anything. So the family is frustrated, of course, that the police aren't doing much. All their information is coming from the PI.
Mm-hmm.
So they send the PI to the police department to give them the info that he found and tell them to look into Christopher Wilder. This is the person, you know? So they, of course, run a background and find that Christopher has a history of violence against women.
Yeah, not a little history, too.
Long.
Extensive.
So a few days later, Christopher's secretary recalls that a story about the girls' disappearances ran in the newspaper. She recalls a specific date because her boss, Christopher's birthday was that day. He was turning 39. So the article in the newspaper detailed how police considered Christopher the primary suspect in Rosario and Elizabeth's disappearances. So apparently, after reading the article, he decided to flee and he suddenly disappeared. Christopher took his 3 dogs and dropped them off at a kennel. He pulled out a bunch of cash at his bank and he left town. He also made a few calls to his friends and his business partner, and he told them that he'd been really stressed lately and he needed some time away, so he was leaving town on a vacation. Just to kind of throw off suspicion and make sure that people didn't come after him, you know?
He can't actually leave, too, right? Because the whole thing in Australia.
I mean,
skipped out on bail,
you can do anything if you don't give a fuck.
That's true. If you don't get caught, if people don't do their jobs right, or if there's no security or
that's the thing
flags.
is like you have to I mean, it's just like a restraining order. Like you have to break it in order for it to be enforced,
True.
You know? And that's the thing is he shouldn't be able to leave his hometown. I mean, you would think, but until you leave and they have to find you, then
like, yeah, he wasn't supposed to leave.
Right.
He did.
Yeah.
He'll be in trouble once we find him.
Right. So. I mean, that's it. So he left town, disappeared, and Rosario Gonzalez and Elizabeth Kenyon's bodies have never been found. So the day after he left Miami, Christopher saw 21-year-old Terry Ferguson at a shopping mall in Satellite Beach, Florida. And Terry's biggest aspiration was to be a model. And a few clerks recall seeing her shopping around for clothes that day. She was really into fashion and she was just looking for new outfits, and she was kind of the perfect target for him. So Christopher lured her out of the mall with his photographer ruse and sexually assaulted her. When Terry didn't come home, her stepfather got worried and he went to the mall and tried to find her. But instead, he finds her car in the parking lot, empty and no sign of her. 5 days later, her body was found 70 miles west in a ditch that was full of snakes. Her body was so badly damaged that they had to use dental records to identify her.
Wait, it wasn't a thing of snakes? That went over my head. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
What?
Yeah, he had just thrown her down the hill into a ditch and there was a bunch of snakes there. Yeah. So after they found her, a witness came forward saying that they had seen Terry talking to an older man. And of course, witnesses again point out Christopher in a photo lineup. While trying to flee the area where Christopher left Terry's body, he got his car stuck in sand and he had to call a tow truck to get it out. And then, of course, there's another witness that he was there at the site where Terry's body was. 2 days after Terry's disappearance and 3 days before she's found, Christopher takes another girl. And to me, one of the things that's so scary about Christopher is he's just going one after the other. Earlier on, it was, a year, a couple years, but now we're at a point where all of the murders take place in the span of about a month.
Yeah, it's like
It's
peaking,
crazy.
kind of.
Yeah. So within a couple days, he's taking a girl every couple days. So the next victim is 19-year-old Linda Grover, who's abducted again from a shopping mall near Florida State University. So he tries to use the photography angle with her, but she shuts him down. So he instead assaults her and uses a blanket to throw over her and pull her in to the trunk of his car. He binds her hands and takes her to Georgia in the trunk of his car. Christopher takes her to a motel where he sexually assaults her. One of the things he does is he super glues her eyes closed and then begins torturing her.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
Oh my god, dude.
Yeah. He begins using an electrical cord and electrocuting her feet. And one of the things that we know about this device is that he brought it with him. So it wasn't like he cut the cord from a lamp or something and used that. He had actually brought a device that he had made out of some sort of, I don't know, whatever it was.
Yeah.
And fashioned it into a little torture device.
Yeah, so it's not like just ripping it and then you just make do with what you have. He is just made his perfect torture device.
Exactly.
He's had time to do it. And he liked it so much that he brought it with him.
Yep. He had the equipment and it had a little switch on it so he could switch it on and off and dial it up and down, a whole thing.
This might be a crying episode. I can already feel it. I can already feel it. It's okay.
It's pretty bad.
Just the glue thing is already getting to me.
Yeah, and I think it's also a sign, one of the things that's disturbing about it is it means to me that he has some sort of remorse.
Yeah.
Because a lot of, if you're someone that doesn't have that remorse, you don't mind looking into someone's eyes and really doing those things. But to him, he knew it was wrong. He knew it was awful. He felt it was awful.
Yeah.
It hurt him to look in her eyes, and so he shut them.
Yeah.
That's scary to me.
It's
all scary, but Jesus.
It is, yeah. And again, he referred to it as a sickness. So it's something you can't control. It's like, I'm not doing it. Kind of, again, he didn't know he couldn't do that type thing. And it's like, you have no control. There's no self.
But he's just trying to talk his way out of it, kind of, just being like, well, it's not me. It's my sickness.
Yeah.
Taking away his guilt, you know? He's a fucking bastard.
When in reality, you're just the shitty person.
Right.
Like, you're just terrible. Something happened to, reveal this, but you're definitely acting on it.
Yes. Oh, yeah. So while he is in the hotel room with her, he starts getting distracted by just watching the TV because he's following the news coverage. So he kind of keeps up to date ever since the newspaper thing. He knows what's going on with the officials trying to find him. So he's watching the TV. And while he's doing that, the girl runs to the bathroom. She gets in the bathroom, locks the door, and starts screaming to alert other people in the hotel.
She made it to the bathroom with her eyes fucking shut.
Yes.
That's good for you, dude.
So Christopher gets freaked out that someone will call the cops and that people will show up. So he just grabs his shit and leaves her in the bathroom.
Oh, man.
So as he's fleeing, again, witnesses outside get a good look at him and they're able to describe him to police and pick out his photo and everything. Linda escapes the bathroom and makes it to the hotel lobby where she tells the clerk to call the police. She was in really bad shape. Her hair was just bloody and matted to her head. I mean, she was really beat up. And she ended up spending a week in the hospital. And once she got out of the hospital, she left the country.
Oh, man.
Because he was still out there somewhere and she was worried that he would come back and try and find her, So she decided to leave the country. So police at this point contact the FBI because of the kidnapping and crossing state lines. They kind of escalate the situation to higher officials. The cops issue an APB for his vehicle throughout the entire country, and they now kind of consider this as confirmation that they know what they're looking for. Christopher Wilder is the person that is doing this to these girls, and they switch it from looking at a suspect trying to find someone to actually knowing that it's Christopher. So at this point, he drives to Texas, where again he finds another girl. He abducts 24-year-old Terry Diane Walden, who is a married mother of two and a nursing school student. On March 21st, 1984, Terry tells her husband that a bearded older man approached her to ask if she would model for him. She declined, but he was very insistent and he wanted her to come back to his car to look at his portfolio because he wanted to prove to her that he'd done all this great work to try and convince her to come model for him. A couple days later, after she tells her husband that she had this interaction, on Friday, March 23rd, she takes her daughter to daycare and drops her daughter off. She was supposed to go have a study session with a friend, and then she was going to go to the mall. But when she didn't show up to pick up her daughter from daycare, the sitters called the husband, and they started looking for her. So her family spent the entire weekend trying to find her, but there was no signs of her, and nobody had any idea where she had went. On Monday, her body is found floating face down in a canal. She was fully clothed and she'd been tied up and gagged, and she was stabbed multiple times. There was no indication of sexual assault. The Texas police were determined to bring her killer to justice. They were very gung-ho about it. They cowboyed up for sure.
Go Texas.
They put together a task force and they meticulously processed the crime scene. They found duct tape, they found footprints, tire tracks, but they couldn't find Terry's car no matter how hard they looked. So they assumed that he had taken it and that's the vehicle he was in. They also knew that Christopher stole license plates, and when they found his car abandoned, they figured that he'd fled the state in Terry's car, but with a switched license plate. They did find that he had stayed at a hotel nearby under an alias. He actually used the name L.K. Kimball, which was the name of his business partner back home with his construction company. But of course, by the time that they figured out that he had stayed at that hotel, he had already taken Terry's car and he was driving to another state. So while he was fleeing to another state, the criminal profilers were really hard at work trying to predict where he was going to go next and what he was going to do.
A shopping mall.
You could be a profiler. You could do this. I believe in you. So unlike other cases where you're building a profile to try and find out who it is, this one was different because they knew who it was. Yeah. And they were just trying to predict where he was going to go to try and prevent him from taking anyone else.
Yeah, what's the next move?
Exactly. But of course, this was kind of an impossible task because he was really willing to drive long distances. He was always going on different off-roads, erratic driving patterns. He was constantly changing license plates. So tracking him was really impossible. And a few times they got close, they would arrive at, a motel or restaurant, and they were a few hours behind him, but it was never before he was there, They were never able to catch him.
That's frustrating.
Yeah. Awful. On March 25th, 21-year-old Suzanne Logan went missing from an Oklahoma City shopping mall. She had dropped off her husband at work and then gone to the mall. She missed an afternoon appointment, and then she never showed up to pick up her husband from work. So again, they go on a manhunt pretty much immediately. Christopher had abducted her, taken her to a hotel. Susan had been tortured, raped, and then he stabbed her to death. Her pubic hair was also shaved off, and she had long blonde hair, and Christopher had cut it off. She had a bunch of small knife cuts that were done before she died as well, that were not fatal, but clearly torture.
What's up with like what happens with your hair when you get electrocuted?
Huh?
Does that have anything to do with it? I'm
I
just
don't
thinking about your hair when you
I
get
don't know. Or
electrocuted.
maybe if he was doing something to her head and that was getting in the way, that could
True.
possibly be it. But but really what I think it was he was trying to humiliate her.
True.
Generally, when I think of hair cutting, I think that it's just about shaming your victim.
Yeah, because what girl likes having their hair cut? Right? No, seriously though, it's very. I mean,
Yeah, I don't know. I just think that that's what they do to try
degrading.
and take their identity or their
Ugh.
whatever away. Yeah.
Shave my eyebrows off, and I'll really,
Then we
really lose
really
my
got
shit.
problems.
Yeah.
So later on, a fisherman found Susan's body floating in a reservoir the same day that Terry Walden's body was discovered, actually.
So shouldn't we be hanging out by rivers and
Yeah. Are
canals?
there snakes? Let's
D-
go chill there.
Huh.
Right after Susan Logan's body is found, Christopher kidnaps 18-year-old Cheryl Bonaventura from another shopping mall in Colorado. Cheryl had done some modeling already, and she wanted to do more, so she accepted Christopher's photographer story. She was all in. Her car was found locked with her belongings inside, and because of all the girls going missing, her disappearance got immediate national attention. At this point, everybody knew about Christopher Wilder, and the media was urging girls to be on the lookout for him nationwide. Christopher decides to keep Cheryl alive and he holds her hostage till he gets to Las Vegas, but then he kills her on March 31st. On April 1st, a few girls recall seeing Christopher approaching them at a mall in Las Vegas. Multiple girls turned down his photographer scam, and a couple girls agreed to meet him later at Caesar's Palace, but he never showed up to meet them. While at the mall searching for girls, he attends a fashion show that was happening at the mall. 17-year-old Michelle Korfman was walking in the fashion show that was sponsored by 17 magazine. 17 magazine would later have a photo in it of Michelle Korfman walking in that fashion show, and behind her, you see Christopher in a chair staring at her and smiling.
I'm gonna throw up. Where's the barf cauldron?
I know.
Please.
I know.
Like what perfect time? Like again, the coincidences in this story is
Yeah,
kind of crazy.
totally nuts. So he, of course, approaches her after the show to offer her more modeling work, and witnesses observe them leaving the mall together. She's reported missing soon after, and again, her car is found at the mall completely abandoned.
Isn't this dude's photo everywhere though?
Right.
What?
I know.
How did he get into the
But some
17
people,
fashion?
I don't know. There needs to be more mall security
Ah,
guards on the lookout.
oof.
Something. But I mean, I don't know. They can distribute it nationally, but that doesn't mean everyone's paying attention or
True.
everyone's on high alert, you go about your day and you don't even notice.
Yeah, you're
I
right.
mean, yeah, you just don't
And
even see it.
probably in hindsight too, or just later on in the day, you're like, oh wait.
Yeah. Yeah. 2 days after Michelle's disappearance, they put Christopher Wilder on the FBI's most wanted list. And this was, of course, to build law enforcement's awareness and public awareness so people really knew who they were looking for. At the time, this was the best way to get info out there since the internet wasn't a thing, and that was the primary way to distribute information was just to put him on the list, and then that would play on every news channel, that would go out to every police station so everybody could be on alert. At that point, the behavioral science unit created a profile on him, and the media began calling Christopher the Beauty Queen Killer. This was kind of a sign that various agencies were pulling out all the stops to get him, and that they wouldn't stop till he was apprehended. So Christopher continued driving west and trying to evade detection. And he ended up just north of Torrance, California.
Oh.
He followed 16-year-old Tina Marie Rosico and offered her $100 to pose for him, which would be about $500 today. Which is pretty good for a teenager. It's a lot of money for a teenager.
Yeah, I only got offered $200. I had to do more than just pose.
He said that he was scouting for a billboard, and if he submitted the test shoot and the casting people liked her, that she would be on a national ad campaign. So this was a big deal for her, and so she agrees. But part of the way through the photo shoot, Tina gets really freaked out, and she says she's got to go. So he pulls a gun on her, and he puts the barrel in her mouth, and he assaults her. But for Tina, he actually decides to let her live. He believed that Tina could help him lure in more girls since his face is being broadcast everywhere. And it's becoming more risky for him to be seen in public. So he decides she could help him. So he brings her along and he decides that she's the key for him to avoid some of the risk. Christopher then cuts her hair short and said that he wanted her to look like the girl in the movie Flashdance.
Comforting to people?
I have no idea.
Huh. Okay, that was
maybe
just
it's more stylish in his opinion.
Maybe
it's a certain fantasy. Yeah, I don't know. I really don't have any info of why, but that's what he did. Christopher then drives her to Gary, Indiana, and forced her to lure in a 16-year-old girl named Dawnette Wilt. So Tina goes into Dawnette Wilt's work and creates the scheme to get her to walk outside, and as soon as she walks out the door, Christopher grabs her. Then Tina drives the car as Christopher rapes Dawnette in the back seat. They have brief stops in Ohio and New York, and when they're stopped, Christopher tortures Dawnette by electrocution and again rapes her. And all the while, Tina is sitting there watching. I mean, she can see this happening. Christopher threatened Dawnette and Tina that he would kill them both if they tried to escape or if they screamed for help, of course, because he learned from the previous girl getting away. He also told the girls that the police will not take him alive and he will not stop until he's killed. The next day, Christopher saw a news report where loved ones were appealing for Tina Marie's safe return home. Christopher decides to take both the girls to a forest in New York so he could kill them. He figures that it's kind of escalating, and I think he just wanted to get rid of them. So he first attacks Dawnette. He attempts to choke her, but he gives up part of the way through, and he decides to stab her instead. I think it's kind of crazy that he gives up while trying to choke someone.
I thought it's hard.
I mean, I hear that, yes, okay. I understand that it's hard, but it's just he's done all these other things to women.
Totally.
So it's a little bit strange to me that he just doesn't have it in him to do that.
Yeah.
I mean, he stabbed all these girls. He's electrocuted them. I mean, he's done all these things that are torturous. So why does he draw the line here? It's very weird to me.
Is he fat?
Maybe he's just really too out of shape for it. Maybe he skipped arm day or something.
Fucking asshole.
Yeah, I don't know. It's just, I don't know what it is that it's striking to me.
I could see that, yeah.
That he tries and then stops.
Yeah.
You know? So instead, he stabs her once in the front of the body and then turns her over and stabs her in the back. But Dawnette plays dead and he believes it, so he leaves.
That girl rocks, because I stubbed my toe and I couldn't fake like being cool about that. Like I couldn't be like, oh.
It's true. I could not keep it in.
No.
Yes. That's a great example, stubbing your toe.
Yeah.
Like
Because you play it off. You try and be cool. And then you like,
You try and walk it off.
You hop.
Like, I don't think I could sit still. I would be completely losing my shit.
Absolutely.
That's so fucking strong and brave and just, I can't even imagine.
Front and back.
Yes. Ooh. Yeah.
Good for you, girl.
I know. So Dawnette survives, of course. She is hustling her way out of the forest, finds her way to a road, and she was found by people passing by and taken to the hospital.
And she fucking ran? Like,
yes,
what?
She ran. She flagged down a car, like the whole fucking thing. Yes. So Dawnette is able to tell police that she was indeed another victim of Christopher Wilder.
And she can talk?
I know, like, honestly, I'm kind of like, no, I would just go mute. Like,
your stomach, your lungs. I'm just like
yeah.
Well, this girl's my hero. Okay.
Yeah. So she's able to provide info that that he's still driving Terry Walden's car, and that they are heading to Canada because they weren't sure what direction he was going. So they're trying to predict that, but now she gives them information for sure.
They were up in Oklahoma City, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
So Dawnette also told police that he said he wouldn't be taken alive, and he intended to give his life in order to avoid any jail time. Meanwhile, in New York, Wilder once again forced Tina Marie to lure in another victim. This time it was 33-year-old Beth Dodge. It seems the main purpose for taking Beth was to actually steal her car so that they could trade vehicles.
Just steal the car.
I know.
What?
I know. It doesn't make any sense. So Beth didn't really fit the profile. She wasn't a young girl in a mall. She was just a random person that they had run into on the side of the road. She was a little bit older than Christopher normally took. And so it's really thought that it was only for her car that she was taken. So Beth was in a Pontiac Trans Am, and Christopher grabbed her and pulled her into his car. He then instructs Tina to follow him in driving Beth's Trans Am. And she went along. She complied. I think she was so afraid of him that she just couldn't not follow his direction.
Yeah, she's seen what he's done. It's not like he's just all talk.
Right. Yeah. She's seen it right in front of her. So, of course, it's like immediate Stockholm syndrome.
Yeah, and she's already been the victim. Didn't he cut off her hair? Or
he was already, humiliating her, torturing her. Yeah. So he took Beth to an empty gravel pit where he shot her in the back and then pushed her body into the empty pit. Christopher leaves the previous car they were driving and then drives off in the Trans Am with Tina.
God, it is a sweet car, though. It really is. My dad had one. It was so cool. Coolest car ever.
You can't blame a man.
I mean, he should have just taken the fucking car.
That's the thing I don't understand. Because he's already leaving people that can identify him. Witnesses, survivors, we know who you are. You're not trying to cover up your tracks so that nobody knows who you are. So there's no reason for you to kill that person.
Exactly.
And no reason.
They already knew you were going to Canada, and this just confirms that you're up in New York, meaning you are going to go to Canada. So they were looking to be ahead of you the whole time. So now we're just going to be in Canada, probably close to the New York border.
I mean, it's just crazy. I just don't understand.
I know. We got to stop trying to understand people because this is just
true. Yeah, futile.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Woo child.
So after they drive off in the Trans Am, Christopher tells Tina that he doesn't want her to be with him when he dies. He's not thinking being apprehended. He's thinking about his death. So Christopher, I guess, has bonded with Tina enough to where he feels badly and wants to not have her see that.
Well, Chris, I'd have to say ditto. So
maybe you should have felt badly a long fucking time ago, dude. But he takes Tina to the Logan Airport in Boston, and he instructs her to take a plane home. So he gives her enough cash to get back to California. And Tina says that she thought, like, all the way through the airport, that at any moment Christopher might just show up and shoot her in the back, you know? So, fearing for her life, she follows his directions. She gets a plane ticket, she boards a plane, and arrives in Los Angeles. The weird thing is, the first thing she does when she arrives back in LA is she goes to the mall and goes to a lingerie store. Very, very strange. Super strange. I mean, I understand how a new pair of panties can make you feel like a new woman,
especially
but
after a terrible haircut.
it fixes everything. But it's really weird.
Yeah.
It doesn't really make sense.
She's fucked
and maybe
up.
she just wanted some normalcy. Maybe she's still in so much shock that she's just not even thinking. She just kind of goes to a familiar place. I don't know.
Which is crazy. I would never go to a shopping mall again.
Right. I would just never want to be around people. I would go to a dark corner and sit there.
Yeah. I would just think predators are around, especially a guy that you've watched, like Scout.
Yes.
Wouldn't want anyone to talk to me.
Yep. So we don't really know why, but instead of going home, she goes to the mall and goes to the lingerie store. So she starts telling the lingerie store manager that she was abducted and that the man had cut her hair because he wanted it to look like Flashdance. And while Tina's walking around the mall, she runs into a couple friends. And of course, her friends freak out because everybody knew she was missing. And they thought, of course, like everyone else, that she might be dead. So they convince her to go to the police. Like, she was completely trying to go about this day like she never disappeared. It was very strange. So on April 13th, Christopher is in Beverly, Massachusetts, and attempts to abduct a 19-year-old girl whose car had broken down. He offered to give her a lift, but she starts getting freaked out by him when she's in the car, and she points out a gas station and asks him to pull over and says, "I'll just get out here." But Christopher refuses to stop. He pulls out a gun, and of course, she gets really freaked out, and she decides to take matters into her own hands, and she jumps out of the car while it's still moving. Such a smart move.
Yeah, tuck and roll, do it.
Absolutely. So he gives up on the girl and he speeds off. She made absolutely the right call. While driving to New Hampshire, Christopher decides that he's close enough to the end, especially after this girl gets out and they are soon going to know, police are soon going to know that he's in the area. So he decides he should start getting rid of things as he drives. So he starts chucking things out the window, like the camera that he used, his suitcase, and a bunch of objects that he had taken from these various girls. He makes it to a gas station in Colebrook, New Hampshire, which is just about 10 miles from the Canadian border. And of course, we know that he was planning to flee the country. So he stops for gas one last time on U.S. soil, and at the gas station, his car gets recognized by 2 state troopers.
Yes.
So some stories and accounts say that Christopher was acting strangely enough to warrant suspicion by the troopers. And it's possible that they didn't really recognize that he was Christopher Wilder. But he was so afraid of being recognized that his paranoia kind of brought suspicion to him because he was acting so strangely. So it's really, I don't know, I couldn't find accurate accounts of whether they recognized the vehicle, they recognized the person, or they just thought, okay, this dude is, something's wrong.
Yeah.
You know?
Or a trifecta of all three.
Right. It could be just a combination. So any way that it happened, we know that the troopers approached Christopher and wanted to question him. And instead of just kind of talking with the troopers, he made an immediate dive into his car to grab his gun.
No.
Yes. So the troopers saw this and they saw the gun right there and they tried to tackle him. He got his hand on the gun and pulled it out as they're trying to tackle him. A trooper named Leo Jellison jumped on his back, but Christopher was able to get his gun and he turned it on himself and fired 2 shots in a suicide attempt.
What?
Yes.
Wait, the guy's on his back.
Yes.
Oh, no.
So one bullet struck Christopher and passed through his body and wounded the trooper, Leo, that was on his back. The bullet lodged into Leo's liver, but he survived. Yes, thank goodness. The other bullet was the fatal shot that hit Christopher Wilder's heart and killed him almost instantly. A number of items were recovered from Christopher's car, including the revolver, extra ammunition, handcuffs, duct tape, rope, a sleeping bag, and his business partner's credit card, that homemade electrical cord that we were talking about with the switch, which was his preferred torture device, and also the novel The Collector, which is actually found in the possessions of a couple serial killers because it's a novel about taking a woman and holding her captive. And that's the story of Christopher Wilder. And he died on scene.
Holy shit. He did a real bad job of dumping things. Like, he dumped your camera? That's
right.
Not the rope,
that's
not the
one...
torture device.
Exactly.
Not your business partners. Like, a name that links you to being at a hotel. Like,
yes. Yeah.
Not
all
book.
The equipment that makes it known that you are this torturer is still in your possession.
Man.
So that was the case of the beauty queen killer, Christopher Wilder.
Wow.
And there's no nothing. That's it. He just killed himself.
That was awful. But he knew he was going out that way. I just hate that. It's like,
yeah, it's like he made the decision that makes me feel like you shouldn't have that decision. Like,
yeah. I think if you want to, like, not if you want, but if you're gonna do shit like that, like
you
if
should expect that something bad is coming to you and just fucking take it.
Exactly. Like if I do a bunch of drugs, I'm gonna expect a mean hangover. That's just that's the risk I take. And
absolutely, you have to be responsible for your own actions.
Yeah, I think
absolutely.
Not that I would respect him anyways, but I'd feel a little bit better.
Yeah,
if he would have just gone through the system, you know, because there's so many people that. He's just like, and to get what's her name to testify against him would be great. I mean, not for her, but in general for all the victims and
holding him accountable. Finally, because there were so many times that he evaded actually serving time.
Even leading up to it, he was just a slap on the hand. He's never gotten caught until that moment, and then he just wimped out real quick. Like couldn't stand it for 2 seconds. He had to shoot himself.
Yes, I feel the same way when I think of like Jim Jones. Like everybody else took the poison and he shot himself. It's just things like that are just like, you fucking cowardly bastard.
Exactly.
Yeah, it makes me so angry.
C for cowards. And that's the whole show.
Yeah, man, that was a gnarly story. It's crazy. Yeah.
Yeah, that was good. Good one. Thank you, Andy.
Yes,
and thank you, Brianna, for all that wonderful research.
It was a lot. That was a lot of information, but worth it.
Yeah.
So thank you again to Andy so much for choosing today's story from our Patreon. So we really appreciate that. It's super awesome. And again, we wanted to thank, do you remember our Patreon supporters?
I remember Delaney.
Mm-hmm. There's a Leah in there because there's always a Leah.
Jabroni.
Jackie.
That's close. I've smoked too much weed for this.
Brent.
Allie. Deli. Allie.
James. You're doing great.
Giant peach of death.
So thank you again to our Patreon supporters. If you want the link for our Patreon, if you want access to bonus episodes and little bits of merch and stuff like that, definitely check out our Patreon. The links are in the show notes and description. If you want bigger merch items like t-shirts and mugs and phone cases and all that sort of stuff, check out our Threadless. Again, the link is in the show notes. And if you want to follow up on some resources and research material that we used, definitely check that out. I don't know. You know all the things. I don't even know why I'm listing them off at this point,
love
right?
In case people forget.
I mean, we forget all the time. Maybe not everyone smoked as much weed as we did.
Yeah.
Maybe drugs aren't people's things. So I should have more faith in people that they'll remember.
Yeah.
But my drug brain is just like, yeah, I need to say that every time.
My drug brain was like, I blacked out. So where are we?
I black out on the weekends.
Yeah.
So I guess, I don't know, you know what's in the show notes.
Yeah.
So I think that's it. Thank you for listening. We appreciate you. And we'll see you next week. Yeah.
Awesome.
So you want to true crime and electricity and chill?
Yeah. Can we sit in a bathtub while we do it?
No.
Okay,
all right.
fine.
You're voted off the electricity team.
Okay, we can compromise.
We can't
or
be
whatever.
trusted. Bye.
Bye.